the house is removed. It's not on the other side. Yeah. I always check that. I'm watching.
Couldn't move over there.
It's a hen house.
I'll forward it. I just sit next to that wall.
And
That way everybody else will see in there to see.
Doesn't have
I like to see it where I'm like, I'm not tempted to open my mouth. You know what I mean? Speak low key. Because I know that
Evan do it.
Well, I am every time, but it's.
So, like Joe goes, do I have to wear my Pilgrim hat? He hates it. He loves that. He loves that. He is crazy about the name. And I kind of got a scepter because it's one day I'm like Harbor. I know he's just crazy. I know. I like Harbor too.
Yeah. You're notorious. And I know what you're doing.
No, but I said, hey, James are leaving.
5102 ready for it.
Oh, okay.
There's a process to it. There's a process. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, quit. You're making it seem like you're not doing the right thing. Pay attention.
I appreciate what they do. You put a lot of hours in. We've been out that play.
Coach, I never see him. I'm always trying to get him to watch those dogs. I got coach that was not the coach. He was actually an SMU coach, this guy. Yeah, he did SMU for a while. He did Georgia.
We also give them.
Oh, yeah. His wife, Sherry, is superintendent in McKinney School. They took over the whole Marines house. They're on his son right next door to me. And he's retired, but they're broken.
Yeah, I know.
Super nice. I heard that was then I got the class next door to Rachel and Jake.
Johnny used to be the neighbor there. Not very new now. He joined in.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Rally around.
Well, he used to know Congress.
Large.
Yeah, large equipment.
Yeah, that's one corner of
Go down here.
then there's also Mike Owens. Randy used to be on there, but he moved to this board, and there's who's right behind you. She's on it as well. Hi.
Okay, I'm putting a note on here, text Daria. Okay. I'll give you my number in case you need it. I'm pretty sure I do. Because I came over to your house and picked up something to take to somebody. Yeah. Uh-oh. We need some paper towels. Everybody else spill their coffee. Well,
There you are. I was just saying that like a honey bunch. Please. I didn't see you.
I'm the only one that made it. He's got one. Sorry.
Yes.
We have a chair up here, and they have a chair. All great chair.
Call meeting to order at 10 o'clock. Mr. Secretary, do we have a quorum?
Yeah, if I get my wife under control, we'll start.
It's expensive.
Sounds.
Time to go.
What do you say? Let's have to.
Alright.
Yeah, we have a
No, that's what she's saying, that's it.
We're gonna move into ratification of electronic votes. There was a vote made on January 21st to approve January 18th, 2020 board meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve those meeting minutes.
Okay. Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Phil.
There's also a vote made on January 28th, 2020 for approval of fire sprinkler water main repair.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the expenditure for the fire sprinkler water main repair.
We have a second. Andy? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And with that out of the way, we're going to move into our owner visitor forum. Yes, face. Cool. Do you have any residents that wish to speak?
Yeah, can you give us a status on the landing?
That is, we're going to be going over that as part of today.
What, one more thing then, on your, what management fees are you talking about there in that B, paragraph 2B, update on professional fees for the landing?
We'll cover that when we get to it. So we retained the services of an architectural firm to do plans and designs for us for proposed changes, and so we need to approve some additional funds for them.
This is the towards the ADA compliance aspect of the landing.
This is not that management firm that we earlier were paying.
No,
This is not, yes, this is not Kemper.
this is for Mershon Architects, the Rockwall firm.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question on the same thing. Architectural plans for repair or for additional work?
Both. Kathy?
Were bids taken on the architectural, choosing the architect, were bids taken on that?
No.
You really take bids
Yes.
necessarily. You look at your options of who can work for you on that side of things. And a big part of the benefit with Mershon, I'm sorry.
They had done some work for the previous board back in 2016. They're familiar with the building.
Okay, so they had some experience on it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're longtime residents of the Rockwall community and whatnot, so.
Okay. Can you, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. I'm just realizing we had a pattern here. Everyone, we want you to state your name and your address.
Oh, okay. Kathy General, 327 Valiant. Debbie Morrison at 436 Columbia. Do we know what the proposed changes are yet? I mean, what are we gonna do as far as changes? On the inside, outside, or
We're
is that
working.
coming up in the meeting? Okay.
We'll give you an update on
Okay.
that.
I'm excited.
Yeah, right now, the biggest part of the focus is from a risk mitigation standpoint on ADA compliance. Anybody else?
Is that mandatory?
Yes.
There is no grandfathering, and if you've heard that, that's a rumor that is not accurate. Anybody else? We'll have a second time here at the end. So, we'll move on. Thank you. We appreciate you all being here on a cold day. I'm gonna run into the President's report. Flurry of activity the last month, trying to get things accomplished. We have a lot of things this year on the books that we're checking into. Overhaul for pool, yeah. equipment down at the main pool with the goal of trying to make it look more luxurious, resort style type furniture. Also with a plan to organize once or twice a day so that it's not just haphazardly all the furniture's strewn about. So we've been focusing on getting numbers on that, as well as we're looking in our security vehicles are 10, 11 years old, and so it's time to start looking at that aspect of things. And then currently also working on street signs. All the street signs, we've talked about this before, but all the street signs need to be completely replaced. It's become a safety matter for the neighborhood. When EMS is coming in, we've had reports of them finding it difficult to get to right places or see street signs correctly and whatnot. So from a safety standpoint, as well as it's just time to probably update the look, and there's a lot of time and money and effort that goes into replacing those wooden signs. So have that on the table as well. And then everything that's going on down at the landing as far as getting that, trying to push that along as quickly as possible, but not short circuit a good process. So that's kind of overall, that's what's been happening in the last month. I'm gonna take a second to just say, we're dealing on the board, you've heard me talk about this before because I want to be very transparent on it. There's a lot of work that's going on, 15 to 20 hours a week for each person that's up here, for free, working for neighbors, which also gets met with a lot of criticism and other things. I'm not saying that you can't speak your mind, but on the rumor side, the rumor thing, there's always been a rumor mill here. We still have one. I want you to understand that takes precious time away from us focusing on projects that need to get done, to then try and clean up and clarify, and we can spend hours and hours doing that. We are your neighbors, we're not getting paid, and we're already putting in a lot of time, so I just ask that respectfully, if you hear a rumor, let's try not to keep rumors going. And we're trying to get you facts as much as possible. I understand that some of it's just lack of information, but at the same time, we're also trying to make sure that we don't bring you a concept or some ideas or updates that then change later on. We're trying to bring you something that's more complete versus, oh, we're going to do this, and then that changes, and then we have to come back to you and that ends up looking horrible as well, and can create a lot of problems in and of itself. So we stick by what we have been doing for a few years now, is running on transparency and trying to keep people informed on everything that we can. Just ask that we can let the rumors die down a little bit and know that we are working really hard for you and doing our best and trying to keep the neighborhood informed as we have concrete information that won't change. So that's
Evan, we talked about making the pool look more luxurious.
Yeah, resort style feel.
What about those steps and
It's in
all
the
of
plan,
that
it's all in
rotting
the plan,
tiles.
it's all in the plans.
oh,
Your-
okay.
There's a
your-
lot of
Your
that.
message was sent, your
Yep,
message has
I got
been
it.
received
Yeah.
4 times.
Pardon me?
Your message has been sent, your message has been received 4 times. We have design plans to
Oh.
take care of all that.
It's definitely, it has to get
Has
done.
to get fixed.
Has to get done. So we're on the same page there. Bruce for Scott on
Yeah.
treasurer report.
Yeah, Captain Scott is, got a contract to sail somebody's sailboat from Port Aransas through the Panama Canal to San Diego. It's about a 4 or 5 week trip, and he is somewhere up the Baja Peninsula right now, so he's probably more than halfway. A lot of activity, cost-wise at the club. We had an insurance settlement of $161,000 for the fire that was coming in the last couple of months. That has all gone out, it's come into reserves and out. But when you clear all the smoke away in terms of in and outs of repairs and insurance and reserves, we essentially, bottom line is we underspent our budget by $6,000 in January. So the controls of spending against the budget is off to a good start for January.
Okay. Chip, you're up on security.
Okay, a couple of issues. We've had some issues in the park with teenagers, some bullying, some vandalism. We've been able to identify the perpetrators on the bullying. I think the parents have actually filed a police report on that. We've have started having security officers down there late in the afternoon after school. It seems to be the time those take place. We're continue to have issues with teenagers being reckless on golf carts. Some of these are not even supposed to be driving the golf carts without their parents. We've actually had 2 families where we've suspended the kids from driving the golf carts. We'll continue to monitor that. Speeding is just an ongoing issue. It's usually guests in the community, not so much some residents, but mostly outsiders when they come in. So we're spending a little bit more time late in the afternoon with just physically having a security officer down in the park. This is probably not the demographics, but Rockwell has a curfew. It applies to Chandler's. For example, last Friday night, Saturday morning, 12:30, there was 6 kids on a golf cart with 2 of them riding up on the roof of the golf cart. So it's those types of things. We've had some, again, people ringing on doorbells at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. This isn't the demographics for that group.
Please
so,
stop.
So please stop doing it if you guys are out doing it. So that's, we're back at full staff. We're making some changes in uniform. We've had some changes just going on in terms on the weekends, on Friday night and Saturday nights. We've had Craig working part of the 2 shifts for 3 weeks in January and early February, which has been beneficial in getting some better understanding of some of the challenges for the deep night security team in particular. So that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. And then on social media, we're continuing to get more residents on Town Square, and we're starting to see more conversations happening there. Want to keep pushing that because that's in a private space that's just for our neighborhood versus in an open public forum like next door, where we end up just making ourselves look bad in a lot of ways. So let's not do that. Let's maintain a high bar, and anything that would maybe be more controversial, and if it's neighborhood specific, let's use Town Square for that. That way we can make sure that we look good to everyone around. So that's all I got. Well, that landing right now, since we're skipping that. Moving on to old business, we have what I think everyone wants to hear. The landing update.
Okay, so we have finished the repairs or the replacement and repairs on the water main that serves for the fire sprinkler system. We had 2.5 inches of rain last week, so I know, Russ, you have inquired about the condition of the lawn down there. That'll get fixed as soon as it dries out, and we can get our equipment in there to do that. We had some additional repairs we needed to make for wiring for the pool pumps, so that's all been repaired. That was a unexpected gotcha. We have received our first set of preliminary plans for the facility. The board had an opportunity to look at them this morning, give some input. This relates primarily to restrooms, elevators, ADA parking, a few other items from just a potential standpoint of for anybody that's been downstairs. There's a lot of areas that are just not usable, doing some demo work. rearranging, as a result of putting an elevator in for all 3 stories. There's quite a bit of demo work that'll need to be done downstairs to create some hallways, restrooms downstairs, things of that nature. So we took a look at it. Mershon is working on providing us with preliminary budgetary item, so we can see what all this is gonna cost. We hope to have that in the next week to 10 days, so it's gonna require some additional work on their part to bring in potentially structural and MEP engineers to take a look at some of the areas. Some of you have probably noticed, we have a pod downstairs. We've spent a lot of time cleaning out, throwing things away, sorting things out, putting furniture, most all of the chairs and banquet chairs and tables in a pod so that we can get things out of the way. And there's a few more items that belong to individuals that we'll be returning to them that we need to get out of there in the next few days. So this is all anticipation of construction, the restrooms. We've seen some preliminary plans for the upstairs restrooms. They'll be a lot nicer than they are today, and they'll be ADA compliant. So we're still working through to see what the city's going to require for ADA parking, so that's the elevator is we've got a location for that, and so all these things now are just going through a pricing process so we can see what the cost is.
Okay. All right, Bruce. Resolution on short-term.
Yeah, y'all may recall that we sent out a survey in the 4th quarter, and we asked your opinion on short-term leases, Airbnb, VRBO. 76% were in favor of changing the master declaration to totally prohibit short-term rentals. That did not reach the number of people, number of owners required to make a change in the master deck. So it got essentially defeated or shut down, but it did provide a good indication of how the community feels about short-term rentals.
What's the number it had to be? What percentage?
67% of the owners, then there's like 1,067 owners. So the number was somewhere in the 700s, and we wound up close to 600 that were in favor of the master deck change. But there were a couple of interesting suggestions. A couple of people that, and they were people that had multiple properties, so there were a lot of votes, and they said, we don't really think you're doing everything you can do to control it, and we'd rather see you go down the path of increasing the controls. So we toyed with that, considered it, and what we wound up doing, we consulted with our lawyers, and we wound up writing and approving a resolution related to short-term rentals, defined as 31 days or less. And that was approved by both the environmental committee, which was required, and the board, and it was registered with the county yesterday, so it is official. And there's several provisions in there. I think the most important provision that is in that resolution is that, let's say you have a 2-bedroom short-term rental that you want to submit to Airbnb or VRBO. You're limited to 1 vehicle per bedroom, which would be 2 vehicles, say, for a 2-bedroom, and 2 guests per bedroom. So for a 2-bedroom, that'd be limited to 4 guests. And that kind of handles the problem where we've had like 18 to 20 vehicles coming in for a party and overwhelming that section of the neighborhood. So that will be a thing of the past. Right now, we have just 1 short-term rental, and it doesn't get rented out very much, and it's compliant with all these regulations. So I think we're somewhere between 90 and 100% in terms of resolving the short-term rental situation.
Okay,
And then, Kevin, we got one motion, we need some, additional funds for Mershon, so.
I'll make a motion to approve an additional, $4,500 to Mershon Architects for additional, architectural fees.
I second that.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that will move us on to new business, and Bruce, you are up again on Sovereign.
Before we
Okay,
go on to new business, is there a date in the future that you're looking at to have the landing complete?
The date is letters, ASAP. That's,
Come on,
yeah, no.
Come on, you gotta have something better
an
than that.
approximate, an approximate date.
If we could just finish through the agenda, David, then if we have another owner business,
Okay.
visitors forum, we can talk about it.
Okay, the first item on new business is a drainage project on Sovereign. We have a couple that have lived at the end of Sovereign for 35 years. And they, essentially the situation, I call it the Sovereign Court Waterworks. We have water coming down Sovereign Court towards the pond eventually. And we also have water coming across the street towards 202 Sovereign. And what it's doing, it's made its own channel, and it's essentially eroding the property at 202 Sovereign Court, which is the end house at the end of Sovereign Court. So the owner would like to make some improvements in landscaping, but he can't do it because this water is, when we get a good downpour, is eroding his property as well as the area it runs through. So we got some bids on putting in a drainage culvert that would take the water down past his house to the pond. We thought that would be, you had the original estimate in your packets for $7,000 to $8,000. And we wound up with a project that we worked out with the homeowners, the contractor, and John Lewis and I, John Lewis being the environmental committee consultant. And we came up with an estimate, I believe the number is $5,850. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve $5,850 to solve this problem on Sovereign Court. Y'all have seen the waterworks
I'll second
with
that.
the video. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, and Chip, you're up.
I want to, so we've had some projects that traditionally the environmental committee, if you bring in for any major improvements to your exterior property, we've typically sent out notices to the neighbors on either side or across the street. We had a project on the EC committee for solar panels. There was some confusion, I'll just put it in that category, upon a notification of neighboring homeowners of that project. And so after people research, there's not any place in our policies and procedures where it's actually formalized. And so I just have put on the agenda that we formalize the procedure for major home exterior improvements, so change of color in the exterior house, new fence, change in style of fence, solar panels, obviously new homes, additions, things like that. The formal process would be to notify the neighbors so that they're aware of what the extent of the repairs are or changes. So I'm just looking for a motion that we can formalize that and get it into the EC.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
I think
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, and that takes us to our second owner visitor forum. Yes, sir. Oh, hey.
And behind the post.
Good to see you.
Phil Bishop, 333 Columbia Drive. One of the things I've sort of suggested to security over the years, to my knowledge it was never implemented, is that when they had visitors come through the gate, and I think they still, if they still give them visitor passes or whatever, but as long as they're there and the car is there in front of them and the driver's sitting right there in front of them, it would be real easy to say, our speed limit within Chandler's is 25 miles an hour, so please abide by the speed limit.
They're actually doing that.
They are. Well, good. I haven't gone to the visitor gate, so
Yeah.
I speed through the other side.
Right. They are, and in some cases it just falls on deaf ears.
Of course,
The big, surprisingly, the major violators are Amazon. And, cause you all are waiting to get your packages,
Yeah.
so they're a big violator, not to pick on them, but a lot of it is contractors, and so, in some cases, we've been able to follow up with them and tell them, slow down, or we're not gonna let you in.
Right, good.
Are we gonna pursue getting any more of those radar things that say your speed is? Cause I would think they would help get people to slow down.
To some degree, they do. We have a program every 3 weeks to move them around, to move the one we have around into different areas of the community.
Yeah.
They're not cheap, and so we've trying to weigh the cost of those.
Yeah.
They're battery operated, so we do have them on about a 3-week rotation period.
Are they solar powered? Solar charged
No,
battery?
they're actually more expensive than these to get a solar powered one. So, but we've looked at batteries actually last a couple of weeks. So as a rule, so we just switch them out. We get a notice and by email that the batteries are low, and then we switch them out.
I'd like to go back to where you said it would be coming up.
And what is your name?
Larry Buss, 5103 Yacht Club. Can you give us an idea, rather than ASAP, a time frame when you think the club's going to be open?
I can't give you a time frame on when I think it's going to be open until I can bring to the board what the cost for the repairs are. I'm not going to have that until the earliest would be late next week. And then once we have those costs, then along in that conversation is what is the amount of time for demolition and construction.
So basically, forthcoming, we're almost to the point where we can have that part of the discussion with a lot more certainty. Right now, if we gave a date, we'd be totally picking something from the air, and it would likely to be over or under, and we have no idea. And it's not really fair to provide random facts to you guys, or not facts.
Yeah, we'd just be guessing, and there's at least 3 people in the room that I know of will put it out on social media, and then it'll be the wrong date, and then we'll just get, it'll just be a disappointment. So I'd rather just tell you what the facts are. You don't like to hear them, I understand that. We'd all like to get it open too, but until we can see what's a realistic date here, it would just not be a good thing to throw time out there.
Are the architectural changes pretty well decided upon?
No, because part of what comes along with it is you have to see what the cost is to it. So, we have a concept, and in terms of restrooms, parking, elevator, but they're on a piece of paper, and until now we can say, okay, that looks like it's pretty good. Can you tell us what the cost is? And that's what they're working on right now.
And the cost will obviously drive what we can
And can't do.
Stacy Dyer, 228 Sovereign. Are there any other other projects other than the restrooms, the elevators, the ADA parking, the downstairs hallway, and those types of essential expenditures that have to be complete before you can open it?
Bridal suite of some type, restrooms downstairs. Not so much the downstairs, but the upstairs, improvements need to be made.
The kitchen
So,
flooring.
the kitchen flooring,
So that we
It's a
stop the
big
leak.
one.
we stop the leak. So,
So there are other things, it's
yeah,
not just,
there's,
cause this seems like a real short list.
yeah, the awning, out in the
Expensive.
front, the kitchen, we have coolers, we have walk-in coolers that the city, had told us before we closed, so there's, Kemper is working with their kitchen, contractor on a redesign of, not so much a redesign, but rearranging of
More
where things
functional.
are, make it more functional. We're going to be taking about 4.5 feet of kitchen space to expand the men's and women's restrooms. The men's and women's restrooms, I can tell you this will actually get reversed. And so the women's will be closer to the front door than the men's. The elevator will fit somewhere in between. The elevator, there's things that will have to go on in on the roof, because the elevator actually will go outside the building when it gets to the third floor. So these are all complicated. They're not necessarily complicated, they're just detailed, and then we have to determine downstairs in this hallway where the elevator comes out. And so there's likely to be some things in phases, that's as far as we are at this point. So,
Well, you just don't understand how helpful it is for us, or for me, I can only speak for me, as a resident, to hear that as your plans.
I
because
actually do
we're-
understand it. but
Yeah,
this is- but I
because
picked
we've
them
been
up.
here, I've been
Yeah.
hearing the rumors too, and I've been one of the ones that's been saying, let's hold off our judgment, let's not say anything till we hear plans. So now I'm here and I want to hear that, and I'm interested in, of course, the essential expenditures first.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to hear today is, what are those essential expenditures as you just described?
Yeah.
And that you're not talking about things, renovations and knocking out walls and complete renovations of that building that are non-essential. That right now you're talking about essential expenditures to get that building up and running.
Everything's being broken down into required to do, basically, which would be like ADA side of things, and then the list then filters down. So,
You used an interesting word, essential, because essential means to some folks, I want it open as soon as possible. And essential means to some other folks, let's have long-term viability and success at the club. And those are two different concepts, and that's what we're wrestling with.
Well, I'm not, I would take it into a third category. I'm talking about opening up that facility, getting that facility ready to open, in any form or fashion. Like, we
Yep.
have to have the restrooms, we have to have the elevators apparently, we have to have ADA, but those things are essential no matter what scope we're looking at as
Agreed.
far as operating.
Agreed.
There are essential
yes.
Right.
repairs, and so that's what you're talking about now,
And
if
it
I
wasn't-
understand it.
Yes, and it really wasn't until over this last month that we started getting that in to be able to know, was an elevator to the third floor viable? All these sorts of things. So again, we're wanting to get you concrete information, but we don't want to bring you something that's more fluid, that could change, and then that's just gonna propel Rumor Mill City to do all kinds of stuff with it.
And I think that
It's not
makes,
intentionally. a
that
hold
makes
back.
us feel comfortable, because part of the rumor, going around the neighborhood, as I know, is all about a business plan change. I mean, the rumors go way beyond what's essential repairs. The rumors go into a business plan change. And I just can't see that you're there.
Well, I mean, Kemper in some degree is a change for our community, because we're positioning it so that the board and future versions of the board do not have to run a restaurant, which we have no core competency or business running. It needs to be run by professionals. My personal perspective on it is, I want it to be run well for the foreseeable future, because what I don't want is to lose what I consider a gem of our neighborhood, waterfront property, clubhouse, pool. I don't want to see that turned into condos someday because we manage it so poorly that everyone gets fed up and just bulldozes it. So it's a great thing, and we need to take care of it properly.
I think
Yeah, we
there's
disagree with that.
there's a perspective you need to have here is the electrical work, timing's everything, and so all the electrical equipment is custom fabricated, and you ran into the holidays, so we didn't get any electricity back in the building and hooked back up. There was a number of things that had to fall in place. So once we got the equipment in, we had to wait on Encore to change out 2 transformers and a piece of switchgear so that we could get the electricity up. We couldn't get a company to come in and scan the facility, interior and exterior, so that we could get an accurate set of as-built plans. So we have, Mershon had the plans for the building at the time it was built, but that's not what it looks like today. And so we had to have electricity on because the scanner needs light in order to see, to scan and get the dimensions. So all those things had to fall in place. Mershon has had, Kemper came out, they needed to bring their kitchen people in to take a look and evaluate what in the kitchen can we save, what has to go, how much space can we give you for the restrooms. There's a number of things that have been going on. We've worked on plumbing, getting the kitchen plumbing back hooked up. We fixed the grease trap outside, so hopefully now the odor when you come in the door, when the wind's blowing in a certain direction, those things have been taken care of. So it's not like we've been sitting up here twiddling our thumbs on these things. And then, we went to turn the fire sprinkler system on, and the pipe burst. So that's 200 feet of a specialty pipe that has to go in. It's not inexpensive. There's new valves that were involved. So all those things have just come into play here. And I think it's prudent upon us, if we're going to have an architectural firm, to say, in addition to the essentials, here are some other, you can put them in the nice to haves or a phase 2, or however you want to look at it, to have a vision from a business perspective, how to make long-term, how to make it have the best chance for success here. And that's what we've been working on, so.
Excellent.
Chip, one of the other things that all of you guys and some of the other people in the community know about is that if you walk through that building, I would tell you that, especially if the lights are off, you might have a real hard time finding your way back. It is the most goofy, strange, disorganized floor plan.
Yes.
It would the thing it would make perfect would be a horror house or whatever the hell. A haunted house. I mean, it's full of dead ends and all kinds of stuff. So it is.
I have a different term for it that I won't state here because, we're on Facebook Live, but yes, that's very well, I mean, if some of you were to see the downstairs in this place, and aside from that, frankly, I've spent a lot of time in there in the last 4 months, way more than I thought I was gonna spend in there. It's filthy. It's absolutely filthy.
It is.
So.
We had a gentleman back here in the back right here.
What are I assume that we're having some drain on the Chandler's Landing board as a result of the restaurant closing. What is the monthly drain on that? And
In terms of money,
In
financial,
terms of financially, who's picking up the tab for the note on the building?
we've actually had minimal expenditures going out. We've stopped any like dishwashers are on lease. We've been able to suspend those leases. The DirecTV contract, we've been able to suspend a lot of that. Really the outpouring, or if you will, of any money has been for refunds on deposits for events has been part of that. And utilities up until middle of January, we had no utility expense.
Who's
So-
paying the note?
Well, we are, I mean, we've been paying it,
We
so
own it.
we own it, so we've been paying the note.
But we don't have any income coming off it.
We didn't have, in some cases,
We didn't have it
any income
before.
anyhow.
We were
So
losing money.
We were losing.
We're not losing money.
Not losing any money here.
Didn't have any
Bill,
salary
specifically,
expenses.
We paid 10,500 a month, 10,500 to service the loan that was taken out in October of 2016.
Is that interest only?
No,
No,
no.
that's P and I. The ongoing cost of running the landing when it's down is mid-single digits, like $5,000 a month, give or take
So it's
$1,000.
costing 15,000 for it to sit
Straight up.
there. And that's one of the questions I assume why people are asking, when is it gonna open?
We would spend more having it open as it was running before.
It's good.
It is.
I'm not
That's
kidding.
the reality, yeah.
Yeah.
Have we in all these discussions, and I know y'all are doing a heck of a lot of work and following up tons of leads and all, but have we ever stopped and had the conversation about Plan B?
Yes.
Which is what? What's Plan B?
Something
That's
other
the
than,
discussion, yeah.
something other than the chronic drain of.
Plan
of
B,
this.
yeah.
I think the club is a great deal. We've used it for 35 years. But we've also seen lots of people go out of business and
We've never had a professional company in there. You've had elevator operator owners, you've had furniture operator owners. We've never had a professional company in there, so that is Plan B.
But we're
Plan
not
B is-
professionals at
No, but
restaurant
Kemper
business
is.
either.
That's
Kemper
Kemper
is. So give it a shot.
Well,
Let's keep our club,
I'm
let's
still
keep our
paying my
amenity, let's get a professional in there.
Yeah.
We're all professionals up here.
I
We know
understand
it
you're
when we see
passionate
it.
about it,
We're very
but our
passionate
passion
about
is
it.
financial.
I
If it
understand
doesn't
it.
work financially, it doesn't work. So it's really a bottom line.
We
And
haven't
we wanna
tried
see
it
the
yet.
bottom
I have a
line, that's
question.
all.
I have a
We
question.
haven't tried
at
it yet.
what point does the anchor sink the boat?
Yeah. Well, I have a question on your perspective there, because you could actually get certain people in the community that start applying that to other amenities. This is an amenity set, and it costs us money.
Yeah.
Ponds cost us money, but we don't want to fill them in with dirt and just make it a flat field.
Oh, of course not.
And
Not-
green
not-
spaces
I don't
cost
think
money
those
to
two are
maintain.
at all equal. You can't compare those.
Let's take up the street.
Yeah.
They're-
Let's take up the streets maybe.
Yeah, no, they're all different amenities, and
Yeah.
being a part of a neighborhood that.
Well, at some
those.
point you can't afford it, and that's what we wanna know what that formula is.
Well, so I
I mean, my
What-
house is
what would-
also laid out really weird,
what
and
would
I'd
you
love
say-
to tear some
So what
walls
would your
out.
plan B be? I'm curious.
Oh, I'm not, I just want a discussion, I'm not.
Well,
What would your,
the one that's always kind of been on the plate, and I don't like it, it's not a good idea, is to sell the property, get some money back into the association, turn it into some condominiums and put some, green space area around it. I'm not an architect, I don't know how to do all this.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, we're not restaurant owners, well, I guess we are a restaurant.
We are.
owners now.
We're a clubhouse owner that has a restaurant.
so we have a professional firm coming in to manage it. They've done a lot of research and evaluation, and they feel they wouldn't take it. They didn't have to take it. They're very picky, I would say, on who they take on as clients, and they feel that they can make it a viable alternative for them. It's if we don't make any money, they don't either. So I would just say if you that is the plan B, and we all need to give it a chance to work here. Regardless of what you think about whether to use Kemper or not,
Oh, I think it's a good
that
idea.
we've demonstrated it's not a core competency. It's no different back in 2001 or 2 when we outsourced security. is that it wasn't a core competency of the association to have, when we had our own security force. So, same type of thing, but there is a cost associated with it, and based on what we're seeing in our interaction on our weekly calls with Kemper, is, they're working marketing behind the scenes for events, things like that, will be beneficial to us from a cost standpoint. So I'm just asking everybody to give it a chance.
Can you get Kemper to put that stuff on Town Square? The last thing I saw from Kemper was in November or October, when they did their overall assessment of the club. Can you get them to post their thoughts that they're giving the board to the whole neighborhood? Please, because I don't do Facebook, so I don't see your minutes, and I don't see the minutes online as well.
Well, the minutes of the meetings are online.
I see where they were accepted, but I can't find the actual writings of them. Am I wrong or not? Or?
Yeah, so Kemper doesn't have an account on Town Square.
Well, then you would have to post it for them.
Right. And so what we've done is they've provided reports.
Uh-huh.
We've taken those and we've uploaded them. So the report on the survey, the report on their initial findings
Yeah, that's
of
what I
everything.
saw.
So as we have those things from them.
So you don't have anything for this remodel from them, or their recommendations, nothing in writing from them?
There is, but we're still trying to evaluate what it is. Until we see the cost, we don't know what to say, here's what we can do and what we can't do. It's
It
a
goes back to the
process.
same thing that
It's
we're dealing with.
It's a process.
Say that again?
It goes back to the same conversation we were having before. We're trying to not bring ideas and potentials and thoughts. We want to bring a more cohesive.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're shutting down discussion of Plan B. So you've decided the trajectory without including us. Because we'd like more discussion about the possibilities of saving our bottom line. I mean, my house is also very disorganized in the way it flows, but it is 35 years old, and I would not dump that amount of money in my house just to make it exactly like I want it, because I can't get the money back. What I need to see from you guys is if you dump a lot of money into it, what is the payoff? What time period? I need some actual facts on
Let me
finance.
speak to that a little bit, Clarice. I think one of the conversations we've had with Kemper, and it opened our eyes, I would say, as a board, is their vision that they've shared with us is that we, Kemper, could take this amenity, and by running quality external events, we could get to a point where there's enough revenue coming in that the community would not have to support the landing, not one penny. That's part of their vision and the way they're trying to guide this thing.
Do they have a
And
time period?
Do they have a time frame on that?
Yeah.
I think what they have talked to is like 3 to 5 years to build up the demand, to reestablish our reputation, which isn't too good.
And
3 to
so
5
can we
years.
afford 5 years at this
Yes.
income level, in
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
can we afford the 5 years trial?
I believe we can.
Without going into reserve?
Yeah, without raising
We-
dues or going into
right,
reserve.
yeah, there's not much in reserve to go into, we need to
Yeah.
take that
And
in
that's
another
kind of what's
direction.
scary, cause like you said, the oopses that you run across, like I gotta redo this 200-foot plumbing pipe. You know, those are going to happen all through the process, you know they are. And with $300,000 in reserve, that's not a lot of reserve to take us from here to there.
Well, Bruce, that's an interesting statement that you just made, because if they're saying that they can do that by whatever, however, what I see, what that makes me think of, is that they're gonna completely change the use of the space. And in order for them to make that pay off to where we don't have to supplement the cost of it, you're going to turn a residential club, meeting place, family place, into a public event center.
It's always
It always been, has been that
Yeah.
way.
But it's a small event center.
right.
It's not a major event center. Well, I don't know if we have the parking for a major event center. So,
We're not.
so when you think about things,
You're
when
just
you-
making assumptions.
right, I am making, exactly. That's what I just said when I started it. I prefaced it by saying, that makes me think. I'm making assumptions about that. And that's kind of what I hear going on in the neighborhood with the rumors,
Well,
is that there
we've
are
been-
assumptions being made.
Our own staff, or now former staff, we had a person whose full-time job, albeit didn't do a very good job at it, but her job was to book events, weddings, rehearsal dinners, things of that nature. Nothing's going to change there, but if you have a inviting facility, and it's clean, and it looks good, and it meets ADA
Yeah.
requirements, okay? For example, Randy, one of his clients came out here to have an event, thought it was a great facility, took one look at the floor in the ballroom and said, no.
Right.
Okay,
We
so,
lost business.
so we lost business. So and in Kemper's case, where they're already talking to people, taking calls, following up, on weddings, rehearsal dinners, things of that nature, nothing's really changing there. It's how can you best accommodate those events, make it inviting, make it clean, make it welcoming. You can't beat the view.
It was underused.
Underused.
It was totally underused
Oh, I
and not marketed at all, and they did so many fajita meals. How are you gonna make money on that?
No, I don't
I'm
have
sorry.
a problem with that. I'm just saying, when you hear that, and when we hear the rumors that are going around, you can kind of tell where some of that's coming from. It's because we still want to have, the meeting place for our residents and for our families.
So, Kemper, they have a very clear concept from this board that we're to use the facility in the best way possible, like it has been used from an event standpoint, and just do a really good job at running those events so that we can make as much money as possible on that side of things. But that's the one part. The other part is this needs to return to be used as all floors for our residents, our events. They have the word, they call it programming, to have events for us, whether that's beer, wine, pyramid, or vertical or horizontal wine flight, etc. Doing more of those kind of things, and then when you get into the summer, craft things for kids and art shows. That's for us. So it is not. It's not moving to a position where it is event focused. It's doing what we were still doing with events, because that can really help us out financially and potentially take the weight completely off of our shoulders financially, which would be fabulous. And then still we get the benefit of the amenity for us. That is a huge part of the focus. It is not just the events.
Yeah, it opens up the door towards re-becoming a private club.
Right.
Where we
Well,
don't
that's
have
what I
people
was trying to
coming
get you
through.
to say out loud, so that people could hear that, so that when people are posting after this meeting on Facebook and so on, and
Bruce
and
just
sharing it with their friends, that they also see that as part of the vision.
Bruce just mentioned something about making it a private club. Is that the plan?
That's on the table if we can develop the revenue to do that and the demand to do it. And that again is probably a 2.5 to 5 year prospect, but that vision is out there, it's on the table, we're looking at it, we're seeing if we can work the steps to get there.
But to be clear on that.
And with events.
Yeah, when you own property in here, you're already a member. It's not like in the John Cole days or whatever where you paid extra dues to belong. That's not what we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Everyone that
lives here would be automatically a member.
So the only people coming through the gates would be event-related people, long-term.
At that point,
Yeah.
if we can.
Rick Morrison, 436 Columbia. Do we have a date from Mershon as to when they'll be finished with these drawings?
He was just talking about.
Well, I mentioned that. I mean, the drawings at this point are as far along as they can be. We just are asking them, they're working on the pricing based on the drawings that they submitted to us. So
Okay, with that being said, you guys, you mentioned the time you donate here, and I mean that's a resource we have, no different than the money. Do y'all log that? time you spend here?
I log my
I
time.
log it.
Well, that'd be good, because if you use that, then we know what you need in the future, and will each one of y'all be able to donate that time in the future? I mean, and it'd be nice for people coming in here in the future, because, you know, it's a rolling deal, and,
We need to have a clear expectation set for future boards.
yeah.
But I will also say this is not how this board's supposed to be. We're taking it on
Well, I
because
understand, that's
it's
why I'm
needed.
asking. I'm
So
trying to
you're
get
on
the
our
thought
process.
process
Yeah,
going.
yeah,
You
yeah.
got
So,
it.
so the perspective there is, if you see that it's taking 15 to 20 hours per week from your volunteer neighbors, that to me opens up the door to what can staff do, or an additional staff member, or what we need to figure that part out, because otherwise, I don't think that working at this pace, if that's what this board was gonna be for the next 3 decades, I think that we'll have really poorly run boards.
Well, I've mentioned in the past, I think it would be a good idea to have an entirely separate group running that club, just like the EC, just like you guys have been.
We've tried that, and,
Mark.
that's what Kemper's gonna be doing. Once they're,
But Kemper's getting paid, and I
They're-
mean, if they do a good job, fine, but
Right.
what's plan B on Kemper if they don't do a good job? Cause I've dealt with employees all my life, and that's no different than
I
an
understand.
employee.
Yep.
I'm just asking, I don't know.
They'll do a good job. Russ?
Yeah, I wanna change the subject. Bruce, on the short-term rental that still exists, where is that?
Cutter Hill, 2.
None, we have any houses that are short-term?
Nope.
Nope.
Not right now.
That's good. Another quick question, I'll follow up on Chip. In the back where the contractor's done all the damage to the landscape, are they gonna be responsible for restoring it to the previous way, or are we gonna be on us?
No, it's on us.
Be waiting. A lot of times contractors are required to, do that, but they're not.
No.
Will we have to bring in other guys, or can Chuck and those guys take care of that?
Until it dries out, Russ, I mean, I hear what you're saying. It will be restored, but it was an emergency repair, and,
Right, I understand that.
we had to take the path of least resistance in a direct line to get it there, so, some of that landscaping, more than likely was gonna go away anyhow, so, but there isn't anything back there today that I don't think, we should be able to handle with our current staff, so. We'll haul the dirt off, like I said, we had 2.5 inches of rain, it's a mud hole right now, and so until it dries out, they'll fill in the trenching we had to do for the pool pumps, electrical repairs on that, and, there's some concrete that's, going to need to be re-poured, so we'll get it all figured out.
Last thing for me is does Kemper have a role in running the pool whatsoever, or is it totally separate entity altogether?
For the pool?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. We've talked about, because they're big on programming and they see the pool. As a kid, I was on the Chandler's Landing swim team. We haven't had a swim team in a while. They might look at the programming aspect and say, hey, I think we could do a swim team or swim lessons or whatever. And so they would be involved in using that. They very well might be involved. At this point, I don't know whether it'll be our maintenance that will need to kind of reset up the pool structure every day as far as like furniture. Because again, we're trying to make it nice and not just have clusters of chairs thrown in one place from the night before, right? So I don't know whether that would be our maintenance or whether that would fall under Kemper. I kind of think that would fall under the employee operations at the landing. So.
Linda?
Linda Honeycutt, 5102 Yacht Club. I just wondered, just a quick little question about the tennis courts. Will Kemper, those are ours, or Kemper will be able to those too?
No, those are leased, we have a long-term lease
Okay.
with, Chandler's Tennis.
Okay. And I just want to say, and I know we don't probably have to say this, but no matter how you feel, I know it's one way for some and another for another, but I just want to say thank you to you guys. I'm really burdened that you guys are having to spend so much time and you never thought you were going to have to do that. And I just thank you.
Mark Sturts, 5104 Yacht Club Drive. There was some discussion on the ballroom floor, but there was no indication that that was included in the list of things that, is that a cost-dependent thing, or is it something that's an essential?
We're looking at all the flooring. Honestly, like I said earlier, I've spent more time in there in the last 4 or 5 months than standing around. There's a lot of issues with the flooring in general. So one of the items on the list is what can't, is there anything with the current flooring that's one, salvageable, and then number two, the downside of wood flooring is it, especially when you're setting up, taking down tables on a banquet styles, it mars it and scuffs it very easily. So we're taking a look at what's the best long-term solution for the flooring in general, and then we'll go from there. So there's a number of items under discussion, so we just have to see what bubbles to the top here.
Anybody else?
Kathy?
I know you said the removal of the dirt. Is there, my thought, I had a thought about that. Maybe it can be used in some places in our community.
Yeah.
For instance, we have pond committee, but our creeks are in bad shape. And there's some areas that are so deep that when it rains, the pond makes it go into those areas, and then it's standing mosquito machines for the rest of the summer, all up and down the creek. Now, I don't know much about how to do creek maintenance, and I don't know if filling up some of those deep reservoirs where water just stands with dirt we already have. That's just a thought.
Yeah, no, we're not going to haul it off outside of the community. I mean, there's some additional spreading of dirt that needs to take place down there, and then we'll pick up what's left and we'll take it and use it.
Is it possible to take a look at our creeks? Because our creeks have not, I know through the years I've lived here, they get mentioned, but nothing happens.
There's several
They're
things
neglected.
like that have not been as maintained as they should have been.
Right, and I realize that you
and
guys
that's a
have
big
your
part of.
right.
I mean, we talk a lot about today. We've talked a lot about the landing, but it's one piece.
Right, no, I
of
know
the entire
that,
neighborhood
I know that, and I also know you're burdened, and I appreciate you working so hard.
The work that was approved at the 202 Sovereign Court partially addresses that. It's a small step. Yeah.
And then,
Okay, I know, we live on the creek, so mosquitoes were just horrendous, and in the park, it is too. I've heard a lot of parents say, in the summer I don't take my children to the park because of the mosquitoes, and it's because of our creeks. I have a service, Mosquito Joe, that comes out that helps me with it, that I pay a lot of money for, but they also said as long as you have that big giant hole that's full of water back there, you're really not going to be able to address it. And they've asked me, have you talked to your board? Yes, many times. And the EC has looked at it many times in the past as well. So that's when I hear the dirt, I'm like, oh, maybe it could be used in the creek.
Sure.
That was just all I
Appreciate
meant
you
to say.
bringing that up.
Okay.
In other words, she's saying dibs on the dirt.
if I had the keys to the skid steer, I'd have it in your driveway this afternoon. But I think just along the lines, just to make sure, this isn't the landing's not the only thing we're working on here. We're working on street signs, painting, curb painting. It's all these things that are going on that we're pricing, looking at designs for street signs that are unique to us, that will help the first responders that come in here. So there's a lot of things going on in addition to what we're doing down at the landing.
One last question. Do you anticipate that there'll be a grand opening of the landing in the summer?
Yes.
Yes,
but we don't know what year yet.
So I'll say this. Kemper, in our conversations with Kemper, as we move along in this process, they've talked about because they want everyone to get back in there as quickly as possible as well. They've talked about having, you know, soft opening type, let's taste the menu tasting and give us feedback and that sort of stuff. So there will be those things happening as we get to that point.
Well, but will it be by summer, or you have any idea?
I really want it to be so. I really want it to be.
What, do you have to define summer?
Oh yeah, it would
Well,
say.
Which summer?
4th of July.
Oh, which summer? That's even more.
Do you have an update on the 2 long-term construction home construction projects?
Yes.
Will the club be open before those houses?
No.
No.
Well, Bruce may want to speak. So 306 Harborview, we have, we went to mediation on that. Bruce may want to fill, he suffered through it. But, you know, there's a date certain that home has to have a certificate of occupancy sometime in May.
Yeah, 306 Harborview, which is probably, if it's not the worst example in the community, it's tied for first. And we have gone the legal route to force the completion of that project. And as Chip mentioned, we had a mediation session last month, and the legal agreement that's court ordered is now finished by May 27th, including certificate of occupancy, landscaping, and external appearance of the building. And if not complete by that date, the agreed upon amount, which was substantial, that they agreed to pay in terms of fines and so forth, triples. So there's probably been more activity since that mediation settlement than the previous 3 or 4 months.
We call that motivation.
Right. 304 Shamrock is.
I was notified that the people out of Austin are gonna present the EC with some kind of plans or updated plans.
They were hoping to.
Yeah. They
by Friday and
didn't see it.
Oh, didn't hear anything.
It's on, I will say, there's been, because I've been party to them, there's been numerous conversations with the city on 304 Shamrock. They've had engineers in to look at it in various scenarios. So I think the latest one is they're gonna submit plans to, they've had discussions with the city on how to get it finished up, so.
It's not for sale?
It is for sale.
It is for sale.
Yeah. It was sold, foreclosed on, put back on the market. But I think they have figured out, I'm just speculating here, is that they're gonna have to finish it in order to sell it.
They're not gonna be able
They're not gonna be able
to sell
to sell it as is.
Is there a deadline for them?
We haven't gotten that far with them yet. They know we're not happy campers here.
Do they care?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think because
they do.
the
lender.
possibility of a show cause hearing before the city council to explain why it shouldn't be torn down looms out there. So they have an incentive to avoid that outcome.
and they are being fined monthly.
Yeah.
How many more years of 10% increases in the assessment do you anticipate?
No idea.
Haven't,
I think it just depends on
Where we are.
where we are
are.
financially. We
Yeah.
don't-
I mean,
we just take it 1 year at a time on that until we can see where we are. I mean, I don't know how to answer the question, so.
Yeah, we know that we have a lot of needs in the community at large, and we want to be able to meet those needs. We want to be able to be more proactive on meeting those needs instead of saying, the ponds will be fine for another 5 years or whatever. So we want to put the community in a position where it can be more proactive, and you need money for that. But to Chip's point, the goal is not to raise it unnecessarily, but the goal is to say if we're moving towards a place where we're revitalizing and fixing a lot of lingering long-term issues, there's a cost to that, but there's also
Well,
the
that's called
benefit.
budgeting, you know,
Right.
Need a budget for 5
We-
years.
we have a
Know
bud-
how much to spend.
No offense, we do have a budget. We spend a lot of time on a budget. We have
Now
a,
we're talking about budget items today, they're
Right.
quite hefty.
right, but we understand how to budget here, so.
No, you could share that, great.
We,
The
they're
budget
all-
is
the budget's all
on
out
Town Square.
online. It's on Town Square. It's all there for you to take a look at. That's been very transparent, always
Very,
has
yeah.
been.
I would also like to thank the board for the many, many hours that you put in and your sincere efforts to improve this community. I do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
David, I have a equally unsatisfactory angle to give you on that too.
Say again?
I said I have an equally unsatisfactory angle to give you an answer on that question.
Oh,
If our vision is successful of having the landing be self-sustaining, that will have a big influence on the need for assessment increases. So my answer to your question would be 5 years or less concerning assessment increases. If the vision can be successful, we can work that out for self-sustaining amenity.
thanks.
Anybody else?
I just want to say I've lived here since 1983, and I've never complained about any dues increase, and I never will. It's worth every damn penny I pay to live here in this community and have the. It's the only place I've ever lived where my neighbors are my friends and my friends are my neighbors, and to me that's invaluable.
Thank you. It is a.
Thanks, Phil, appreciate that.
Yeah.
So we may not always agree, we may not always get along. I'm a short timer here since 1998, and every time I think about moving, I go, nah, I'm not doing that. So,
It is a wonderful community, and we want to make sure that it maintains that and that we're positioned for success for the future.
You know, I tell my friends that, you know, they might know their neighbors on either side of them, or might know the guy across the street, but, I mean, you don't have what we have here, where I know, I mean, if I'm in trouble and he's not around, I have 10 people I can run to, and you're one of them, you know, that if I need help, that I know that I've got not just neighbors, but friends,
That's
you know.
that's abnormal.
It's
not.
crazy,
It's
yeah.
really interesting. I work in real estate. It's really interesting when clients and I talk and how are things going? Oh yeah, I met a couple people. No neighborhood has the feel from a community spirit aspect that this neighborhood has.
When we moved here from Irving, I knew two neighbors. The guy next door I would steal a beer from periodically, and then the lady across the street whose dog kept crapping in my yard. Those are my two neighbors, and they weren't friends.
So you spoke of passion earlier. I'm extremely passionate about this community, not
So
just
am
the
I. I've
club.
lived here for 35 years.
Well, and I'm going on 20. So I love all these people. I love the fact that you disagree with me. I love the fact that we can disagree with each other. But the one thing I won't give up on is having a place for all of us to meet. I will not give up on that, no matter what.
Oh, I think
So-
that's a grand plan.
Don't vote for me if I re-up, if you don't like it. Because I'm gonna stick with that club, and what I'm really good at is bringing business to the club, quality business. That's what I do in my professional life, and that's what I'll bring here. I'll bring a bunch of planners down here, I'll bring a bunch of people that will spend money. And I'm not talking fajita dinners, I'm talking steak dinners. David Mallard is gonna have a steak in that big
give us-
ballroom.
was it 2 or 2 and a
With
half?
a big
2 and a
glass
half
of
is-
wine,
I know it's
and
2
nice quality wine.
Yes.
Not
I'm in
Eagle
for that.
Dutch.
I'll bring the one.
So, I am very passionate, but I'm also passionate about the ponds, the kids club, our golf cart parades. One of the reasons why we moved certain things is so more people could participate. Do you remember when we used to have, for some stupid reason, they had the golf cart parades on Tuesday nights where nobody could get here? We moved it to the weekends. This board is committed to spending time so more people can participate. That's why we have meetings on Saturdays. So we're very passionate. And nobody has an ulterior motive up here. It's all for you. Every bit that we do is for the inclusiveness of everyone.
Yeah.
Not
well,
just the
I think that we
10%, the
should-
2%.
I think
it's
that we
everything.
should be a part of, more, the community as a whole should be more a part of the decision making. I think the thing that I'm going back to in my mind was when we bought the club and we were not consulted, and now we're like rebuilding the club.
Here's the thing is, the ship sailed on that. Just,
Yeah.
you
And-
gotta let
well,
go.
but now
It's
we're
done.
rebuilding it, and
Okay.
we'd like to be part of that.
And what is it?
decision-making too.
You're happy to participate,
It's
that's why we're.
it's an amenity of
Right.
mine as well as yours.
Right.
Absolutely.
I get a say.
you're here,
And I'm not the only one.
you're here talking to us.
Yeah. And
We
I wanna
appreciate
be
that.
included, so please include the neighborhood in your decision making. That ship hasn't sailed.
Well, if you do it by a committee that big, the ship will never sail.
Yeah.
It never gets out of port.
Yeah, I think.
It's true, and that's why the board exists.
But on the other hand, we took a vote to see whether we wanted short-term leases that didn't cost us any money, but we weren't able to vote on whether we wanted to purchase
Yeah.
the club.
Neighborhood, yeah.
But in,
No, but
in
they had
lieu
a
of having
hearing, and
time
the
to
hearing
fix
was
that.
was considerably more in favor of buying it than they were against it.
And how many people were at the hearing?
It was, I don't know, several, everybody was invited, but how many there, I don't know, but.
Okay, if there's no one else that has questions, we will adjourn.
Yeah. 10 years ago, we had a vote to buy it, and it was the majority approved buying it, but we declined to buy it because it wasn't a super majority.
Oh.
We waited 10 years and the price went up $1 million.
Exactly right.
I've not seen it, but it doesn't mean it's not there. It may have been put in a, we have a pod on there, let me check on it, I'll let you know. I don't know, I haven't looked at it. Thank you.
Yeah,